Welcome to That British Homestead. Today I'm going to go ahead and harvest. I haven't been in for a couple of days, so I'm planning or expecting there's going to be quite a bit of harvesting. So let's get started. Taking off the growing tips because it is August. Our growing season is basically done. So there's no point of us having too many tomatoes on this vine here, because the frost doesn't come until November, but the blight will beat the frost. I think this one's called Alaska. It's very pretty. So for those of you who are curious, I picked them a little bit early because of the rodent population down here at the allotment. Means that I get more of a crop. Also, you've got to take off the tops of your tomatoes because they will actually make little marks in each other as you stack them up. Oh, and these ones, Alaska, they are green at the top. And they do have they kind of look like apples if you look at them in the right light. I think they're really cool. So I'm back to the allotment, basically harvesting all my wonderful bounty. And I have to say that some of them do have a little bit of a split skin. And that's because of the rain, because it hasn't rained in so long. And then we had a couple of days of somewhat rain coming down. It causes the tomatoes to actually swell. And when they swell, just like how you get a stretch mark, the skin will split. Sometimes it will form a sort of scar over the tomato, completely edible, but some people find them quite unsightly, or they'll split open and rot. So you see this one here is actually split open. There's nothing wrong with it, but I go ahead and eat them because I find that because there's the stretched skin like this one, if you put a heavier tomato or any sort of tomato really on top of them, they will actually split open in the basket, which is just a whole load of work that I just don't need. And to be honest, if you've been watching my channel for any period of time, you know that I'm walking around snacking on all of my lovely cherry tomatoes and things whilst I'm harvesting. So it isn't much of a sacrifice for me having to eat all of these tomatoes. I actually got these home and I roasted them and made some roasted tomato pasta sauce, and I pressure canned it. I was quite happy with the results actually. It made really quite thick and luxurious sauce. Because of all of the different heirlooms, it's always a different flavour because you always have a different combination of strawberries, of tomatoes and cherry tomatoes to large tomatoes ratio. So it's looking really great. As you can see, some of this area is quite interplanted, and I think next year I'm actually going to think about interplanting a little bit more. So not just doing a whole bed of tomatoes, but sort of having tomatoes, cabbages and everything all sort of higgledy-piggledy. I quite like that. I like the kind of chaotic look of an allotment that's all different things. I think it looks quite special, so I think that's going to be the plan for next year. At the moment, this is interplanted with peppers, tomatoes and some flowers like cosmos and marigold, so not very much, but I think it's doing very well. It's also interplanted with obviously bindweed. But I think it's doing really well. As you can see, some of my peppers are actually colour changing, which I think is awesome. I am trying to leave my peppers now until they do colour change, but Oh, look, these are starting to change colour. Oh, they're turning purple. Isn't that cool? This is Tumbling Tiger. This has actually been one of my favourite tomatoes to grow this year. I just think it looks so nice, and it really does put in the put along a lot of harvest in the early times. You see, I just picked a snail out of this tomato plant. So what I'm going to do is just pop it onto the compost. Snails have no problem, but they have a place and it's on the compost heap. But because this is so low to the ground, because it's indeterminate type, it is going to have an issue with our lovely snails hiding under it, because the blistering heat is about to come down. It's actually afternoon here. It's late evening, sort of afternoon, so it is a lot cooler, and it is so much more pleasant coming to the allotment when it is a lot cooler. I think personally, I've been really struggling with some of these very, very strong heat waves, but at the moment it is cooled down. Obviously you can see the shininess of my arms and probably my face, where I've put absolutely oodles of suntan lotion on. This is green zebra. You can see that it is a green tomato, but it is striped. Right there you could see that there is a little bit of blossom end rot, and that's because they're just not getting enough water. So I go ahead and note that down and make sure that that plant gets significant more water, because I tend to deep water when I water, and the edges might be a little bit neglected. But so far that's the first plant that I've had blossom end rot in this allotment, so it's not too bad.
This is another furry variety, but this is definitely not the peach. Beautiful.
These plants are looking a little bit worse for wear, and that's only because I came in and pruned my currants that were just taken over, and there's actually a branch of that currant that I've accidentally left behind because it got way too bushy. It was a little bit ridiculous, so due to it coming up to blight and me wanting good airflow, I went ahead and gave it a trim. I'm a little bit concerned about blight now, because of obviously it's getting a little bit humid, it's getting a little bit hot, and obviously I am putting a lot of water on this myself, and I'm worried about when blight comes about. It's very hot and humid, and under these determinate plants it is very hot and humid. So we'll have to see. I've done really well with the amount of tomatoes that I'm getting. This lot of tomatoes alone, I made, I think it was 18 half pints of tomato sauce for pasta. So I can't really complain. I've made curries, I've made roasted tomato soup, I've made so much from them. So I am incredibly grateful, and we'll see how much we have left. Oh, and tons of salsa. So we will see how much of a harvest we will get left, if we get a load of green ones, and what will happen. I do have my safety tomatoes in my greenhouse, but they are yet to produce any tomatoes off them. They have lots of very, very large green tomatoes growing on them, so we'll have to see what will happen with those ones. This plant here, I think it was called, I want to say sun gold or something like that, gold nugget. That's it, golden nugget. It produces quite a lot, but you do have to dig for them. It's one of these determinate varieties again, so I am having to kind of manhandle it and pull the limbs of it around to get the tomatoes that are growing underneath. I do notice that if I do let them get any more ripe than what I'm picking now, there is significant mouse or rat damage on them. So I like to get them nice and early and stop them pests wanting to come into my allotment and wanting to create damage. I know that a little while ago I told you about one of my friends on the other allotment, and she harvested, I think it was like a good kilo of tomatoes, and not one of them didn't have a big mouthful out of it, where she thought it was rabbits, but whatever rodent it was had actually eaten a significant part of their beefsteak tomatoes, and they were gutted. They were really upset by it, because obviously they spend a very long time watering, planting, etc., and it is a bit disheartening when you come down and something has eaten all of your tomatoes. So I do want to make sure that I'm sort of removing them before the pests start looking and thinking, oh, that's something that I'm going to make a habit of checking every day, because then it's going to be very difficult for me to break that habit in this sort of season. So these tomatoes you see me picking are actually called currant. They are gold and red currants. These ones actually going to be one of my favourite tomatoes now. Is the weirdest tomato. It's called a green German sausage. It tastes like a raw potato, right? And I say that, it's one of my favourite tomatoes, so you've got to try it. It's amazing. Tomatoes, I picked tons of these and I ate them all, like, in one sitting. Nobody else will eat them because they taste like potato, but, like, when I say they taste like potato, it's in, like, a really good way. But yeah, I'm going to have to grow these every year now. I'm addicted to them. So these are back to the currants. These are red rush currants. They are a small cherry or a currant variety, and they're very sweet and they have a few seeds inside. However, I have to say this plant is prolific. It really does go everywhere. So I was told not to prune it, but I will never not prune it again. It is also a teeny little bit difficult to collect all the tomatoes, but children absolutely love this job. And yes, none of them go in the basket and all of them go in the mouth, but they do make light work of a fiddly job. So if you are concerned about that and want to try them, it's great. Or if you want to sit and eat them and pick them off in the garden, I think they'd make a great snack. But to be honest, at this point, I've eaten so many German sausages that I actually probably don't have enough room in my tummy for any more tomatoes, because I ended up eating that whole lot of tomatoes, which is ridiculous, isn't it? But they are really nice. As you can see, some of the leaves are a little bit discoloured here, and this is where I'm a little bit worried that it could be blight. But once again, there's not very much I can do. I'm just waiting to see. If it is blight, only a few of my varieties have got it, and I want to be making a note of what varieties they are, because I like to have a note of them so I can think where I would be arranging my tomatoes in future so that it doesn't spread so readily through the allotment, because as you know, allotments will have more diseases than normal gardens, because like I keep saying, this is 70 years people have been growing here the same basic vegetables and fruit. So we have all the pests are red alert, a big arrow pointing to us to come and check us out, because we are growing tomatoes and all of that sort of stuff that they like to eat, and diseases are very, very prone to going onto a plot that has been growing the same things for years and years and years. I'm now this is like my sort of graveyard of all my plants, where I couldn't fit them on the main part of the allotment. I had this sort of piece of land where I picked up all of my garlic and I've put tomatoes down, and I think they're doing really well considering how neglected I have on it. I've pulled tons and tons and tons of tomatoes off here, and the peppers here are doing so phenomenally well. I'm growing jalapenos and things like that. I've got some varieties that some of my friends have given me from seeds from Lithuania, so I'm very grateful for them. I think they're really cool. So I'll be excited when they start coming in, because they seem to be quite a late cropping variety. I've got some really great aubergines here, 3 of them off of one plant. They were huge as well. Hello, I'm so sorry I didn't finish my harvest with you guys. One of my plot neighbours came over. She was a little bit upset. Basically, you know, because of the heat and everything, she's just got no harvest. So she was a little bit upset and came over and helped me pick some cucumbers and finish up my harvest for the day while I was having like a little bit of a chat. I gave her a basket of cucumbers and some tomatoes and some raspberries, and I think some tayberries as well. So she went home quite happy. And some like other little bits and pieces. Sometimes it's really good just to have a little bit of a moan, isn't it? And obviously to share the harvest. I'm getting so much that it is my pleasure to share it with my plot mates. So I just wanted to apologise, but I want to show you also what I got. So these are all the peppers. These are all the cucumbers that we collected. And what I'm going to do is I'm just adding them to my pickle mix. So I'm going to be filling this up, and I have to make some more brine, because I'm never very good at judging the brine and how much I need, but basically I've given them a good scrub, and I'm going to go ahead and put them in this big jar. So I'm just going to head and put in as many that will fit, really, just really pushing them down into this jar. I find that when they've kind of pickled, they do get smaller eyes. They do get smaller, so I'm not that fussed if they're kind of like rammed in, because there will be room soon in the jar. I look lovely. I'll show you one that we made earlier, so you can see where they're the pickles before, and then I had another harvest, so I put some more pickles in there. I'm pretty sure that most people are like, oh look, and here too, they're the old pickles that wouldn't fit. And then there's some fresh pickles on top. So I chose to move on to these jar lids because they're so much better for pickles because none of the metal is in contact. But when I run out of them, I want to use my old trusty larger jars. I feel like all I do right now is make pickles, but I love pickles, especially about Christmas time, and Jasmine loves pickles. So these are going to be a dream when it comes to so yeah, I feel like I've done, look how messy my kitchen is. It's because I've got all my canning supplies out from the garage. So I've got like some onions and some garlics and stuff. We keep them all in the garage. So I've gone ahead and grabbed them out because I'm going to go ahead and make some roasted tomato sauce later. So excuse the mess. You'll notice it's always messy when you go into my kitchen because I have like 60,000 things on. So yeah. I also got, I haven't washed these yet, but some lemon cubes. And I got some English cucumbers, and they're really great because I don't really get them because they're not doing as well. I've got some more cucumbers too, but I've got a seed cucumber, which I'm going to save seeds from. I've got a little cucumber that I'm going to save seeds from. And I've got a big cucumber, which we can eat fresh, so not a bad little haul of what are they called, cucumbers. So we're probably going to eat them raw. We do eat a lot of cucumber, so we do eat a lot of fresh cucumber, so we're going to be continuing that up until, you know, the first frost. Our first frost is roughly about the 4th of November. Now, although that sounds like, wow, you have such a long growing season, yes. However, the weather really does cool down and it gets super foggy. So it might seem that we have a really long growing season, but like tomatoes will be well over by then. So I can't remember, but I'm pretty sure the cucumbers were going to be slowed down, probably pulled out by then. There's no point of growing them much past September because it is so cold for them, and they're heat loving. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm super excited about having so many jars of pickles because we go through them like nobody's business. I have this thing for burger sauce, so I really want to have enough to make burger sauce because you get a little bit of cucumber, little bits of pickles in there. So I'm really looking excited to them. I was hoping to get enough jalapenos to make fermented jalapenos because I love fermented jalapenos, especially with salsa, but we'll see how that goes. At the moment, it's still quite young. Maybe we'll have some more luck later in the year, but at the moment, I'm using the jalapenos that we're getting because I really like them, which is probably should wait. But there's another plant that I'm growing that's doing really well, a different type of pepper, and it tastes exactly like jalapenos, but it's not spicy. So it's meant to be a snack pepper, but it tastes like jalapenos. So I might go ahead and try to ferment some of them. Exciting stuff, I do know. But thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time. Bye bye. Very hot. The brine tastes really good. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Thank you and see you next time.